Most candidates fail their behavioral interview answers before they get to even the good part. Why? Because the initial details are often unclear and there's simply way too much irrelevant information that's being shared. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to nail the situation and task section of your answer. If you utilize these simple tips, your interviewer will be way more connected to your actions and ultimately your outcomes because they understand the exact challenge you faced because you established a short and clear setup. So let's dive in. The beginning of any strong behavioral answer is all about the context. So in this video, we'll cover it using the STAR method by focusing in on the situation and task. But regardless of the method, whether you like the STAR method, the CAR method, the PAR method, starting with context, it's non negotiable. It just needs to start here. And the best piece of advice is to keep it brief and be specific at the same time. And I understand that it can be very, very challenging and difficult. But most people, they just provide way too much information in this section, sharing generic details about items that are just not important to answering the question. The situation and task should not be more than 4 to 5 sentences and should not take longer than 30 to 40 seconds to complete. Think of the situation and task a little bit like a movie trailer. Give your audience enough to understand the plot, but nothing else. So, what is the makeup of these sentences? Start your behavioral answer with one clear sentence, your role and company, and add any context if needed. For example, this is an example of a time from my role as an enterprise cloud sales rep at XYZ Corp, a company that focused on provided compute based cloud solutions. Okay, so why start here? Because it establishes credibility and tells the interviewer who you were at that moment, what you did, and it sets the stage for everything that follows. And here's the thing, many interviewers either never looked at your resume or they glanced at it for 10 seconds. And even if they spent a longer amount of time, they still don't know where the example is coming from. This sentence becomes the anchor, and psychology actually backs this up. When we perceive someone as credible early on, we're way more likely to listen, trust, and remember what they say. So before you talk about the challenge and or your task, start with your title and company and build from there. And if your company or title needs a little bit of context, provide it. So, the next part of the situation and task is where most candidates make the biggest mistakes. Specifically, they ramble. They add way too much background. They use company specific or uncommon abbreviations or terminology. And they just are constantly adding details that are not important to answering the question. And in general, what happens is the interviewer gets overwhelmed with data, but this part of your answer should be laser focused. So, what was the challenge? Who was involved? And what process or tech mattered? Very specific, very brief. So, for example, the client was a Fortune 500 retailer that had been using an outdated cloud provider and was facing major latency issues during peak shopping periods. We were brought in to propose a full migration to our enterprise cloud solution. The deal involved aligning stakeholders from IT, procurement, and the C suite on both sides. This is the setup, it's not the story. So just align the details in your goal and do it quickly. And one last crucial piece of advice for these 2 to 3 sentences, speak at the fifth grade level. That doesn't mean dumbing it down, it just means making sure it's super clean and clear. Do not assume that your audience understands the specific world that you live in. Remember, if they don't get the context, the rest of your story will be unclear or confusing to them. And while they're trying to figure it out in their mind, what's going on, you're still talking. Okay, the final step is what you were tasked with doing. This should just be very short and clear. Ideally, one sentence like, my task was to close this enterprise client within 3 months. Why is this important? Well, first, it's just kind of reinforcing the focus of your story. Second, it adds a timeline. And almost all candidates leave this aspect out. Without your timeline, your example lacks a little bit of connectivity. I have no idea if this was a week long initiative or if it was a year long project. This last sentence brings it all together, what you had to do and by when. If you take nothing else from this video, remember your situation and task is not the story, it's the setup. Keep it brief, keep it clear, and make sure it ends with that time bound item. Make sure to watch my other two videos on this. I really break down not only your situation and task, but your actions and results by really diving into what are the best sentences. And hopefully, this series of 3 videos will help you absolutely crush any behavioral answer. I wish you the best of luck.